Star Wars Ahsoka is releasing in a week. Dave Filoni is making his live-action premiere. Now, some are saying this will be the show that saves Star Wars, you guys. But is it really? Before you get too excited, there are some important things you really need to know about the upcoming Ahsoka show. The most important thing you need to know is Disney Star Wars is not Star Wars. The George Lucas 6 films and the expanded universe is the real Star Wars canon. After the sale of Lucasfilm to Disney, it became Circusfilm, and they decanonized the expanded universe. This includes stories beyond Episode 6 Return of the Jedi all the way back to the Old Republic. Thousands of years of canon wiped away. Star Wars Ahsoka takes place 5 years after Return of the Jedi. In Disney canon. I understand many would love to see stories in this time period of Star Wars, but you need to look to the expanded universe for the real
Star Wars content.
Star Wars Ahsoka is a fake news Disney show. Disney Star Wars isn't canon. Star Wars Ahsoka isn't canon. Speaking of other shows that isn't canon, Star Wars Rebels is also not canon, only relevant in the Disney universe. Ahsoka is literally going to be season 5 of Star Wars Rebels. There's a lot of hype and excitement for it. But did you watch Star Wars Rebels? Star Wars Rebels was terrible. Every episode has the same format. There's problems, Ezra yells, they fix the problem, or someone gets captured on an Imperial ship, Ezra yells, they infiltrate the Empire, they rescue them. It's really a show catered to 8-year-olds who aren't too bright. Personally, when I was 8, I enjoyed cooler shit. Now, you may have liked Star Wars Rebels. You might have liked The Clone Wars. The Clone Wars was made in 2008 before the sale to Disney. George Lucas was involved. It's canon, right? No. Another thing you need to know going into the Ahsoka show is Dave Filoni's Clone Wars isn't canon. The Clone Wars multimedia project covered the time period between episodes 2 and 3. It contained books, comics, video games, the Clone Wars micro-series. This was canon and still is a part of the expanded universe. Dave Filoni's Clone Wars completely disregarded it. Filoni's Clone Wars and the Clone Wars multimedia project cannot coexist in the same timeline. It doesn't even fit well with episode 3. Anakin and Dooku didn't meet a dozen times after episode 2 Attack of the Clones. Dave Filoni is known for twisting and ignoring canon completely. However, Filoni's Clone Wars is currently and wrongfully categorized in the Legends timeline. It's a gray area. George Lucas had limited involvement, but the facts are both cannot exist in the same timeline. Dave Filoni's Clone Wars, it only makes sense that it is attached to Disney's garbage canon and not a part of the expanded universe. That takes us to the next thing you need to know before watching Ahsoka. Ahsoka isn't canon. Dave Filoni's Clone Wars isn't canon, where she premieres. There is no mention of Anakin ever having an apprentice in Revenge of the Sith. You saw how immature and emotionally unstable he was in Attack of the Clones? Why would the Jedi Order give him an apprentice of his own quickly after the events of that movie? George Lucas had checked out by 2005. Filoni was allowed too much creative control to manipulate the Star Wars timeline. He would hide things from George and defiantly refuse to kill off his baby. The next thing you need to know is Dave Filoni has an Ahsoka fetish. He is obsessed with her. He loves her more than his own wife. Ahsoka is his creation. It's his Luke Skywalker. And under Disney's control, his creation is competing to be the primary character. Considering what happened to Luke in the sequel trilogy and everyone's dislike of Rey, Ahsoka, Filoni's bae, is in prime position to dominate. Furthermore, something you really need to know, don't expect Luke Skywalker to be in this show. It will be a cameo at most. This is Ahsoka's show, it's her time. This show appears to be taking the expanded universe Thrawn trilogy and swapping Luke for Ahsoka. Filoni is known to rip off the EU and pass it as his own work. If you call yourself a real fan of Star Wars, don't watch this show. Actually read the Thrawn trilogy. And if you have read them and are anticipating this show, why? Why would you want to see a watered-down heir to the Empire with Ahsoka instead of Luke? This show is going to be Disney garbage. Despite all that, you might still be on the Filoni bandwagon. You don't care about the EU, you loved the Clone Wars, you loved Rebels, you love Ahsoka. But do you love the sequel trilogy? At least 75% of the fandom doesn't, and if you ask them privately, I'm sure that number is even greater. Dave Filoni loves Rey. He had no issue with Rey beating Kylo Ren, a descendant of Skywalker, with no training. She just used the Force.
And she looks strong.
To me, that's a fireable offense. I would never employ anyone to write or direct Star Wars that believes that duel was acceptable. Many hate The Last Jedi. Did you know Filoni was shadowing Rian Johnson, learning from the quote-unquote best? And Ryan took a little from Dave too. Where do you think he got his famous Mary Poppins idea from? Dave Filoni also created Star Wars Resistance, a sequel trilogy animated show. Dave Filoni is going to save Star Wars? He's only helped destroy it. His show, his upcoming movie, isn't going to retcon the sequels. He's not retconning his animated sequel trilogy show. Dave Filoni embraces Disney canon. He fully embraces Disney's leftist culture. Which brings us to the next thing you really need to know before watching Ahsoka. Dave Filoni has a strong women problem. Dave has an obsession with creating strong female characters. Strong OP female characters. I'm not exaggerating when I say obsessed. It's to the point where he is compromised. He cares more about creating strong female characters than making good Star Wars. Ahsoka, female, extremely OP. The fallen Padawan, Baris Offee, kicked the shit out of Anakin Skywalker in a duel in the Clone Wars, a Filoni-created character. Omega!
Omega! Yeah, Omega.
What the fuck's Omega doing in this show?
Dude, I like Omega!
The famous Martez sisters. In his 2 Mandalorian-directed episodes, they featured women, Fennec Shand and Morgan Elsbeth. Star Wars Rebel Sabine with the short colored hair, along with the Martez sisters, another SJW lesbian-looking Dave Filoni character. Here she is dominating Kanan, a Jedi Knight, after a few hours of training. Dave Filoni even had her rip off Anakin Skywalker's legendary move in Revenge of the Sith. I guess it's better when a female does it. Dave Filoni's Ahsoka show will primarily feature strong women. Look at the trailer for evidence. Again, it's not that women can't be good characters, it's just Dave Filoni is compromised. He has an obsession. The primary focus should be on writing a good story, not political agendas. What you need to know going into the Ahsoka show, Disney doesn't understand what Star Wars is, or what fans want, and they don't care. Dave Filoni is not saving Star Wars, he's part of the problem. Beyond the garbage Dave Filoni, before you go into Ahsoka, you need to be aware of how bad Disney has failed Star Wars. It started with the sequels. The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett have failed, exposing another quote-unquote savior of Star Wars, Jon Favreau. Kenobi was terrible, Andor was terrible, no one reads the High Republic books, all of them are written by left-wing activists. And there's plans for a Rey movie continuing her story. So with all those failures, why should you be excited for this show? Disney has only failed in the past. And let's say I'm wrong about all this. Let's say Filoni defies the odds and produces something great. It's all leading into the sequel trilogy. It's only a matter of time before Rey shows up. You're on borrowed time. You may enjoy the show now, but you really have your head in the sand. You're willfully being ignorant to all the shit around you. And you can't just erase a few movies and fix things. Everything in every part of the Disney Star Wars timeline is fucked up and needs to be eradicated. Disney Star Wars is trash. It can't be saved. And if we can't save Star Wars,
You can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
and the last thing you need to know going into Star Wars Ahsoka is the show is going to be trash. And I'm going to rip apart every episode on the channel, and the Disney shills are going to cry about it. You're Dark Melvin, why are you ripping apart Ahsoka? It's my new favorite show. I don't care about your feelings. The Knights of Melvin are going to avenge Star Wars, and we are going to crush the Dave Filoni Ahsoka show because it is trash. It does not fit in the real Star Wars canon, the George Lucas 6 movies, and the expanded universe. I'm growing stronger in the dark side every day, but I need more Knights!
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.